Hey guys, how's it going? I got another story for you today. This story actually has to do with me. It's something that happened to me in my life. And I think there's a very important lesson in this story that we can all take. And I think if everybody adopted this sort of approach, I think it would make the world a better place. Now, I just want to start off by saying that, I'm a human being with flaws and mistakes, and I do things that aren't all that smart sometimes. And if you ask somebody who knows me, any of my friends, they'll attest to that. But in this story, I think I did something right. I think I did something good, and I think if more people did this, it would just make for a lot more peace and understanding in the world. So I used to be a part of like a homeless outreach group in the church that I used to attend, where we'd go downtown and speak to homeless people and just share love with them. There wasn't any kind of agenda. It was like we'd bring maybe like drinks or like hot chocolate or juice, depending on the season, and some sandwiches, and just try to build relationships with them and try to, expand our vision of what it means to be human, given that a lot of us are arguably a lot more fortunate than the people that we were going to go see. So I was a coordinator of this outreach, and I had certain rules because it can get a little tricky when you're down there. You never know who you might run into. So things like I instituted certain measures, like people have to stick together in groups, especially because I was leading high school kids, and so they were minors. So they have to stick together. I instituted certain leaders who would sort of guide pockets of groups of us as we go downtown and connect with these people. So another rule was that we shouldn't, when they ask for money, if they ask for money, that it kind of be redirected to me, and then I would be the one to like assist or give donations or share money with someone. So one time when I was downtown, there was a group of about 50 of us with maybe like 5 or 6 leaders, and then one of the other leaders came up to me, and it was interesting because this was a guy I've known my whole life, and he was sort of he used to beat me up. So he was kind of a bigger guy, and it was just to give some context. So he comes up to me very scared, and he's like, "Hey, you gotta come right now, come." And so I didn't know what was going on. So I went, wasn't that far away from me, maybe 10 feet away, in front of a shelter. There was somebody from the shelter who was holding a knife and holding it up to like 5 or 6 of these high school kids, yelling, screaming that he was gonna stab them, that he wanted money. And so right away I thought, like, this is all on me, right? This isn't just something I'm seeing happen. I'm responsible. So my first instinct was I pretty much just went up to the guy. I stood sort of close and I said, "Hey, you want to get a cup of coffee?" And he just sort of like looked at me because he was in this sort of rage. And then as I said that, I got in between him and the kids. And he was like, "Yeah." I said, and then I just kind of turned around. I was like, "Okay, let's go." And I think everybody was in a sort of state of astonishment. Like, we thought, they were terrified. They thought something brutal was going to happen. But I said, "Hey, do you want to get a cup of coffee?" And the way that I said it, I acknowledged that he was a person, regardless of what he was doing. When people act like that, it's because they're in pain. So when people inflict or threaten to inflict pain on others, they're actually showing you the level of pain that they're in. Now, some people might have maybe taken a different approach to this guy. They might have, I don't know, like punched him in the face. or threw him to the ground or something, and probably would have been seen as a hero for doing that, because they would just see this person as one-dimensional. They would associate his actions with his personhood or his identity. This is a violent person. That's what he is. But when I took that approach, I walked away and I said, let's go. And I didn't act scared of him or anything. I said, let's go. And then he turned around and just kind of walked right kind of behind me, sort of beside me. And then I said, let me see that thing. And I was referring to the knife. And he gave me the knife that he had in his hand. And then I took it. It was a switchblade. I just shut it and I gave it back to him. And I said, put it away. You're not going to get what you want with that. So again, another very important point here to illustrate is like the thing that he was using to create a threat, he gave to me. So he relinquished the threat when he saw that I saw him as a person. I can't repeat that enough. Like when people act a certain way, threaten, they will relinquish that threat when they see that you see them as people. So I gave it back to him, and then we kept walking to the Tim Hortons. Now I was scared, of course, but I felt like this is the right thing to do. I felt like I had to get him away from these kids, and that if something happens to me, so be it. But I can't in good conscience let something happen to people I'm responsible for. And, there were the kids and that other leader were like following from the distance, still scared. And anyways, I went to have coffee with him, and he lifted up his shirt. I was like, what's going on with you? He lifted up his shirt, and he had a hernia that looked like it was about to explode. It was very difficult to look at. And so that's why he was asking for the money. So he was in pain. And I would imagine, maybe there was no other avenue for him to communicate that he needed money, or maybe he had tried and nobody really listened to him. So he resorted to this. So anyways, we helped him out. We gave him what he needed. And it was just such an interesting, again, metaphor that only hurting people hurt. Let's not get it confused and think that hurting people are bad, or people who hurt people are bad, I should say. People who hurt people are hurting, and they're actually just acting out the pain they feel inside on someone else. So in a way, this guy was showing these kids, or showing the world, how scared he was of what he was feeling inside. So if there's a threat in the world, or in your community, or in your own personal life, you have to understand, if there's a group of people or anybody who's kind of creating this conflict, it's because they want you to see them. And maybe what you should do is ask them for a cup of coffee, see them as people, and see the reason for the pain. And if anybody has a story that they've experienced that's similar to this, I'm sure there are examples of people who've seen this this principle at work, that only the hurting hurt. Feel free to do that. Share it below. But only the hurting hurt. And I can't repeat that enough. So if we lived in a world where we saw that only the hurting hurt, that means that when somebody causes or does something that is hurtful, we would see it as a reflection of their own inner pain and not take it personally. And if we do that, then we might help them heal that pain, like what happened with the guy in the story. And then that's one less hurtful person in the world. And then imagine that everybody did that for everybody and didn't judge them based on the things they were doing, but instead perceive them accurately as they're acting out the pain they feel inside. I can't wait to see that happen. And I'd love anybody watching this, this is something you can feel free to learn from me. There's other things maybe I'm not that good at, but this is something feel free to implement in your life. When that happens, don't go and punch the guy. Don't go and see him as your enemy, but just see him as somebody who's hurting and that maybe you're the person to help.